Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Andrew always thought he knew his wife better than anyone else in the world. 8 years of marriage teach you things no manual or marriage counselor ever could: the small gestures, the comfortable silences, the way she'd scrunch her nose when something bothered her, the specific way she organized books on the shelf by color and size. Claire was, above all, a woman of details. Every object in their home had its exact place, every routine followed with nearly obsessive precision, every meal planned ahead of time. He'd always admired that about her, her ability to turn everyday chaos into harmonious order. It was comforting to come home after exhausting days solving complex engineering problems and find everything exactly where it should be, including Claire, always smiling, always present, always perfect. But perfection, Andrew was about to learn, can be the most convincing mask for hiding devastating flaws. It all started on an ordinary March morning. Andrew was reviewing spreadsheets at his home office when he noticed something unusual. The shared credit card statement showed a charge from an Italian restaurant 40 minutes away. It wasn't the amount that caught his attention, it was only $50, but the fact that Claire had said that same day she'd been home all afternoon organizing the laundry closet. He said nothing. He filed the information away in a corner of his mind, like someone storing data he wasn't sure would ever matter. In the weeks that followed, small anomalies began to pile up. Claire's car, which she mostly used for grocery runs and meeting friends, started showing mileage that didn't add up. One week, she claimed she'd only gone to the gym and the supermarket, trips that shouldn't have totaled more than 30 miles, but the odometer showed 120 extra. Andrew, trained to spot flaws in complex structures, couldn't ignore the patterns forming. Claire checked her phone with anxious frequency, always turning the screen down when he got close. She started wearing a new perfume, something woody and expensive he'd never seen in the bathroom, but only on certain nights, always Wednesdays and Fridays. There were also subtle changes in her behavior. She became more distant, but in a strange way, not angry or sad, just absent. Like part of her mind was always somewhere else, processing information he couldn't access. She smiled at the right moments, said the right words, but there was a mechanical quality to it, like she was reciting a rehearsed script. Andrew wondered if he was being paranoid, if work stress was making him see problems where none existed. But engineers don't survive by ignoring data. And the data was telling him something he didn't want to believe. On a rainy Thursday in April, Andrew decided to act. He didn't confront Claire directly, that would be emotional, impulsive, and likely lead to denials and more lies. Instead, he did what he always did when facing complex problems: he methodically gathered information. He opened a spreadsheet on his computer and began documenting everything: the times Claire left the house, the places she claimed to visit, credit card transactions, odometer readings. He cross-referenced dates and found a clear pattern: every Wednesday night, from 7 to 10, and every Saturday afternoon, from 2 to 5, Claire disappeared. Officially, she was at the gym or meeting Rachel, her best friend. Andrew decided to check. He called Rachel, pretending he was planning a surprise for Claire. The conversation was brief but revealing. Rachel casually mentioned she hadn't seen Claire in nearly 2 months, since a brunch in February. Andrew thanked her, hung up, and felt something cold settle in his stomach. It wasn't anger yet, it was a disturbing clarity, like finally spotting the crack that's compromising an entire structure. He knew what he needed to do next, even though the thought made him nauseous. The following Monday, Andrew hired a private investigator. It wasn't easy. He had to search online, read reviews, pick someone discreet and professional. The man he hired, a former cop named Greg, was straightforward: 5 days of surveillance would cost $2,500 and include photos, videos, and a detailed report. Andrew paid half up front, gave Greg Claire's license plate, a recent photo, and the suspicious time windows. Greg promised results by Friday. Those 5 days were the longest of Andrew's life. He kept up his normal routine, working, having dinner with Claire, sleeping beside her, but it was like living in a parallel reality. Every time she smiled at him, every time she asked about his day, he wondered if it was real or just another layer of performance. Claire, for her part, didn't seem to notice anything. She stuck to her meticulous routine, made breakfast, tidied the house, left at her usual times, returned always on time. Everything perfectly normal. Everything perfectly fake. On Friday afternoon, Greg called. His voice was professional but compassionate when he said he had everything documented and wanted to deliver it in person. They met at a cafe downtown, far from anywhere Claire frequented. Greg placed a thick brown envelope on the table and simply said, "I'm sorry. It's all here." Andrew didn't open the envelope then. He paid the rest, thanked him, and went back to his office, locked the door, and finally looked inside. The photos were brutally clear. Claire entering an apartment with a man Andrew didn't recognize, tall, dark hair, maybe mid-30s. Claire kissing that man at the door before going in. Her car parked in front of the same building on different days. Photos with timestamps showing exact times, Wednesdays at 7:15 p.m., Saturdays at 2:30 p.m. Greg's report even included the man's name, Marcus Webb, a personal trainer who worked at a gym 10 minutes from her house. The dossier had 19 pages, each documenting a different lie. Andrew read it all 3 times, sitting alone in his office as the sun set outside. He didn't cry. Didn't yell. Didn't break anything. He felt something deeper than anger, a complete disappointment so total it was almost numbing. 8 years. 8 years believing they were partners, that they trusted each other, that they were building something solid. And how long had she been doing this? 2 months? 6? A year? The report documented the last 5 days with solid proof, but the behavioral pattern suggested it had been going on for at least 3 months. Andrew realized he might never know the full truth, and maybe it didn't matter. The essential truth was there, in 19 pages. Claire had chosen to build a whole life of lies, and he had been foolish enough to believe the performance. That night, Andrew slept on the sofa in his office. He told Claire he had a tight deadline and needed to work late. She accepted without question, probably relieved not to have to keep up the act any longer. The next day, Saturday, while Claire was at the gym, actually, as Andrew now knew, at Marcus's apartment, he acted. He called a divorce lawyer a colleague had recommended years ago. He explained the situation briefly, mentioned the evidence he had. The lawyer was efficient, he could have the paperwork ready by Monday. The house was registered solely in Andrew's name, his parents' inheritance, so there'd be no dispute over it. They had no children. No shared businesses. The divorce would be clean, at least legally. Andrew spent the weekend in a surreal calm. He prepared everything methodically, organized financial documents, separated his bank accounts, transferred joint savings into a new individual account he opened that morning. He wasn't doing this out of revenge, he was doing it because it was necessary, because every additional minute spent in that lie was a minute stolen from a life he could have lived honestly. Claire noticed he was quiet, but when she asked if everything was okay, he simply said he was tired. She accepted the explanation and went back to checking her phone, probably messages from Marcus she'd delete in seconds. On Monday night, Andrew was ready. The divorce papers were signed by him and only needed her signature. Greg's full dossier was in a separate folder. He got home before Claire, which was unusual, and made coffee, not because he wanted to, but because he needed something to do with his hands. When she walked through the door, smiling that perfect, false smile, asking how his day had been, Andrew simply said, "We need to talk." "Sit down." Claire blinked, surprised by the seriousness in his tone, but sat on the sofa. Andrew didn't sit. He stood, placed the brown envelope on the coffee table between them, and said in a voice too calm, too controlled, "You're a perfectionist about everything, Claire. Even in the details of how you deceive me." He saw the color drain from her face. He saw the exact moment she understood something was terribly wrong. She looked at the envelope but didn't touch it. "Andrew, what are you talking about? Open it." It wasn't a request. With trembling hands, Claire opened the envelope. The first photos turned her completely pale. She flipped through quickly, as if speed could make it disappear, then stopped on one particularly clear picture of her kissing Marcus at the apartment door. She closed her eyes for a long moment. When she opened them again, there were tears, but Andrew felt nothing but a deep emptiness. "Andrew, I can explain." "No," he raised his hand, a polite but firm gesture. "You can't explain. You can lie more, invent justifications, try to manipulate the situation like you've been doing these past months. But explain? There's no explanation for this. There's only choice. And you made yours. It was a mistake, A mistake?" Andrew almost laughed, but the sound came out bitter. "Claire, this has been going on for a long time, and the photos prove what I already knew." "How many more before that?" 6. A year? Mistakes happen once. This is a routine. You have scheduled times. You built an entire parallel life, with lies so detailed they even include fake alibis with people who don't know they're being used. Rachel hasn't seen you in 2 months, did you know that? But every Wednesday you meet her. Claire started crying for real now, tears streaming uncontrollably. "I don't know what happened to me. I felt trapped. You work so much, I was alone, and Marcus, he made me feel." "No," Andrew interrupted, his voice cutting like a blade. "Don't put this on me. I work, yes. Always have. And you always knew that. If you were unhappy, if you felt alone, you should have talked to me. You should have been honest. But you didn't. You chose to lie. Every single day, looking me in the eyes and lying. You chose to build this perfect performance, where I'm the fool who believes everything while you live 2 lives." He pulled out another, smaller envelope from his coat pocket. "These are the divorce papers. I've signed them. You have 2 weeks to sign and leave this house. The house is mine, my parents' inheritance, it's only in my name. I'll be fair, you can take all your belongings, the furniture you bought, whatever you want. But in 2 weeks, you won't live here anymore. Andrew, please, don't do this. We can talk, we can try couples therapy, I'll end it with Marcus right away, I swear." "Therapy?" The word came out thick with disbelief. "Therapy is for couples who want to save something. Claire, there's nothing left to save. You destroyed it all. Every time you left here saying you were meeting Rachel or going to the gym, every time you came back pretending everything was normal, every kiss, every 'I love you,' it was all a lie. And I don't build my life on lies." Claire stood up, trying to move closer, but Andrew stepped back. "Don't touch me." His voice was low but firm. "You lost that right. You lost the right to touch me, to pretend you feel something, to use intimacy as a tool of manipulation. I really love you." "No. You don't. You don't know what love is. Love is trust. It's honesty. It's choosing the person every day, even when it's hard, even when it's boring, even when the novelty is gone. You chose someone else. Repeatedly. 4 months. That's not love. That's selfishness with a performance of perfection over it." He walked to the office door, where he'd already placed a small suitcase earlier. "I'm sleeping at a hotel tonight. Tomorrow I'll come back for more things. You have 2 weeks. My lawyer will contact you." He paused at the door, without looking back. "I really thought you were different, Claire. I thought we'd built something real. But you preferred the illusion of control over the reality of an honest partnership. I hope it was worth it." He left without waiting for a reply, closing the door with a soft click that sounded more final than any slam. Claire was alone in the living room, surrounded by photos documenting her betrayal, the divorce papers sealing her future, the absolute silence of a house that suddenly seemed enormous and empty. She looked around, all still perfectly organized, every object in its place, and realized she'd spent so much time controlling the surface of things that she let the substance collapse completely. In the days that followed, Claire's life collapsed with the same precision with which she'd built her lies. She tried calling Andrew repeatedly, but he blocked the number. She went to his office, but security wouldn't let her up. She sought out Marcus, desperate for some support, some validation that what they had meant something. Marcus was clear, he wasn't interested in a real relationship, much less complications with betrayed husbands and divorces. He was interested in the fantasy, the mysterious woman who showed up twice a week with no strings attached. When the fantasy became messy reality, he disappeared, blocked her number, and changed his gym schedule. Mutual friends started asking questions. Andrew never spoke badly of Claire publicly, never exposed the sordid details of the affair. He simply said, when asked, that they were divorcing due to irreconcilable differences and preferred not to discuss specifics. But his silent dignity, the calm way he spoke about it, contrasted brutally with Claire's increasingly visible desperation. People began putting the pieces together themselves. Rachel, when she finally learned the truth, cut all contact. She felt used, her friendship turned into an alibi for betrayal. Claire signed the divorce papers on the 13th night, sitting alone in the kitchen she used to keep spotlessly clean and that now collected dirty dishes and unopened mail. She moved into a small apartment across town, a tiny studio that contrasted brutally with the spacious home she'd helped decorate. She took her belongings, her clothes, her books organized by color, but everything felt empty without the context of the life she destroyed. Months later, on a rainy October afternoon, Claire saw Andrew at a downtown cafe. She almost didn't recognize him at first, he was different. Not drastically, but there was something lighter in his posture, like a weight had been lifted. He was alone, reading a book, drinking coffee. She thought about approaching, trying to talk, apologizing again, but then a woman walked up to his table. She was beautiful, smiling genuinely, and Andrew smiled back, a real smile, no guards, no layers of self-protection. They chatted briefly, the woman casually touched his arm, then left. Andrew went back to his book, still smiling faintly. Claire felt something break inside her. It wasn't jealousy exactly, it was the devastating realization that his life had gone on. That he wasn't defined by her betrayal, wasn't paralyzed by bitterness. He simply moved on. Rebuilt. Found peace. While she was still stuck in the moment, everything fell apart, replaying every decision, every lie, every choice that brought her to this tiny apartment and suffocating solitude. She left the cafe without ordering anything, unseen, and walked back to her apartment under the light rain. That night, sitting on the floor of the empty studio, surrounded by boxes she hadn't even had the energy to unpack fully, Claire finally understood what she'd lost. Not just a husband, not just a house, not just stability. She lost something far more fundamental, the possibility of being loved deeply, consistently, with the quiet generosity of someone who chooses to trust even when it's easier to doubt. She confused security with boredom, loyalty with weakness, and paid the highest price possible. Andrew, that same night, was in his new apartment, smaller than the house, but perfectly suited, making dinner and listening to music. He didn't think about Claire. Not actively, at least. Sometimes she still appeared in his mind, a ghost of a life he once had, but growing ever more distant, ever less important. He'd learned something valuable in those painful months, that true love doesn't survive on lies, that dignity is worth more than revenge, and that the greatest strength isn't in destroying the one who hurt you, but in refusing to be destroyed by it. He didn't celebrate Claire's downfall. He didn't feel satisfaction in her visible collapse. He felt, in fact, a distant sadness, not for her, but for the version of her he believed existed, for the partnership he thought they had, for the future built on false foundations. But that sadness no longer defined him. It was just a scar, something that existed, but no longer bled. And as the rain continued falling outside, Andrew washed the dishes, checked his work emails, and went to bed early. No drama. No hatred. No Claire. Just him, his peace slowly rebuilt piece by piece, and the quiet certainty that some doors, when closed gently, must stay closed. Forever. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.